Every Sisters of Seshat ritual begins and ends with the temple ritual. This is where we reconnect with Seshat and establish the space where we will do the initiation. There are three main sources for the temple ritual. First, there is the lodge work of the Eastern Star, the women's branch of Freemasonry. From them, we draw the idea that our tradition is drawn from the four quarters of the world. Next, there is the lodge work of the Golden Dawn, which is also adapted from Freemasonry. This gives us the pattern of establishing officers in their places and on performing knocks during rituals. Finally, the temple ritual invokes Seshat as the goddess who constructs the temple. The action of measuring the walls with thread is drawn directly from Egyptian temple images and is uniquely our own. We take our officer names from the Golden Dawn officers. Our officers are the Hierophant, Hegemon, Hyrus, Dedukos, Stylistes, and Sentinel. The Golden Dawn adopted these names from the officers of the ancient Eleusinian mysteries. Those mysteries inspire us today as they have inspired people through the millennia. The Hierophant, Hyrus, and Hegemon are the three main officers, managing light and darkness and the balance between them. If necessary, these three officers can conduct the initiations and cover the roles of the other officers between them. The Dedukos manages fire in the temple. The Stylistes manages water in the temple. The Sentinel guards the door. 4 altars establish the 4 pillars of the temple. These correspond to the 4 pillars of the Egyptian cosmos that separate the earth and the sky. These pillars create the space in the middle world where we all live and move. The altars are placed at the corners of the temple. The air altar is in the northeast, the fire altar is in the southeast, the water altar is in the southwest, and the earth altar is in the northwest. They each have colors: yellow for air, red for fire, blue for water, green for earth. We know that elemental colors differ from system to system. These are the ones that we use. Candles on the 4 altars are lit at the beginning of the temple ritual to establish the pillars and are extinguished at the closing of the temple. Each altar also contains specific items of the corresponding element. The air altar is administered by the Hegemon. It has a yellow altar cloth and a candle. Since we meet in a state park, we use tea lights instead of live candles and use a candle holder of the appropriate color on the elemental altars. This altar also holds the tools that construct the temple. First, there is an image of Seshat. Next, we have the spindle with thread to measure the temple. Our thread was donated by a sister who spun it herself and dyed it with cochineal. It also holds the bell the Hierophant uses. Finally, there is the egregore object. An egregore is the energy of a group or a tradition and is part of what is passed in initiation. Sisters of Seshat has an egregore, and the egregore of the Isis Nephthys temple is part of that egregore. Our egregore object is an obelisk made from citron. The fire altar has a red altar cloth and candle. It holds the censer, incense, and lighter. When the fire danger is high in the state parks, we use the stick of incense unlit. This altar is administered by the Dedukos. In rituals with only 3 officers, it is administered by the Hegemon. The water altar has a blue altar cloth and candle. It holds a bowl filled with water and an aspergillum, which means a tool to dip into the water to sprinkle it. Ours is a honey dipper. We've also used sprigs of herbs, which is a very witchy thing to do. This altar is administered by the Stylistes. In rituals with only 3 officers, it is administered by the Hyrus. The earth altar has a green altar cloth and candle. It has no other special objects. The earth altar is administered by the Hyrus. Each officer has an assigned place in the temple called a throne. The Hierophant sits in the east between the air and earth altars. The Hyrus sits in the west between the fire and water altars. The Dedukos sits in the south between air and fire altars, and the Stylistes sits in the north between the water and earth altars. The Hegemon sits in the center of the temple, balancing the 4 elements and balancing light and darkness. The Sentinel sits in whatever place in the temple makes sense to be able to guard the temple. Each initiation begins and ends with the temple ritual. Each of the initiations then moves on to work with the spheres of the Tree of Life. The temple ritual constructs the temple in the 10th sphere, the sphere of the planet Earth. The equipment needed to conduct the initiations fits into 2 storage boxes, plus 5 tray tables and chairs for each of the officers and candidates. We found that folding camp chairs worked just fine for this purpose. The temple is intended to be easy to set up and take down to encourage us to do the work. The Soras of the Isis Nephthys temple love to create lovely tools, and we love to use them, but we started out with symbols on paper and store-bought tools. What matters is not the stuff, but the energy and the experience. We've held rituals in a living room, a meeting room in a hotel, a ceremonial lodge, and a bookstore. In 2021 and 2022, the Isis Nephthys Temple met during the summer in a picnic shelter at a state park, which allowed us to be outdoors and socially distant while still meeting in person. This is actually our favorite location, as it is surrounded by trees and has a view of the water, and we can step out into the sunlight to connect with the power of the sun. The Temple of the Sisters of Seshad exists as an energy form. Every ritual we do takes place in that structure and reinforces that structure. The energy structure supports the physical temple and the virtual temple. The physical temple is seen and heard. The virtual temple is visualized and imagined, but it is not less real than the physical temple. It is more real. It is the energy form that the physical temple occupies. We treat the virtual temple with respect and reverence. The Sisters of Seshat perform the temple ritual before every initiation to open gates to the mysteries. We hope you are inspired to learn more about Magia Femina and explore it yourself and with your friends. Remember to subscribe to be sure to catch our new videos.